Attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, I would like to welcome you to today's live webinar featuring Rapt Media and Tribe Pictures. I would also like to welcome our two speakers, Caleb and Barbara. Barbara is VP of Production at Tribe Pictures. She has been spearheading projects in television and film production management for over 20 years. She is responsible for Tribe's production workflow, resource management, and the design of schedules and budgets to suit client needs and manage expectations. Caleb Hanson is VP of Product at Rapt Media. Caleb's background is in design, user experience, and front-end development. He has always had a passion for design and strong geek tendencies. His real passion is in startups where he gets to create cool new products and set them free into the market. We want to interact with all of you during this webinar, so please post any of your comments or questions in the chat window. Also, we are going to be live tweeting during the webinar, and I'm going to post the hashtag in the chat, but it's Rapt Tribe Webinar. Also, there's a handout section in here where Tribe and Rapt Media have uploaded some great content for you guys to read. Also, we're recording this webinar, so we're going to be sending up a follow-up email that contains a link to the recorded version. And we're also going to be turning this webinar into an interactive experience, so stay tuned for that as well. All right, Caleb, I'll kick it off to you.
Cool. Thanks for the intro, Lauren. So, hi, everybody. You've been kind of sitting here looking at some scary statistics, and I want to kind of touch on those briefly. We won't belabor the issue, but these are stats that we just did from research of the Fortune 1000. We surveyed hundreds of employees, and this was what we found out. It's a little bit scary, and you're all here because you know that traditional methods aren't working, and companies are feeling the pain, and you're looking for ways to solve it, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to start by talking about video. Video is a really powerful tool to connect with your audience and convey a message. Barbara, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's where I jump in. Hi, I'm Barbara Hennessy, and you know, we've been saying for years, Tribe Pictures has been in business for 30 years doing mostly corporate videos and videos for colleges and universities. Of all the media that you have at your disposal as a communications professional, we really feel strongly that video, or especially well-executed video, is second only to making a human interaction come across, and that power, you know, that medium has the power to elicit really strong emotional and memorable responses. Now, with interactivity, you know, using video is more like a dialogue than ever before. You know, so video can be a great tool for you, but you know, now we're looking for new and different ways to use video because we're surrounded by video content, and what you need to do is find a way to cut through the clutter.
That's right, and the truth is that great video isn't good enough anymore. And so I want to talk about relevance for a second. Now, the thing is that you're talking to your audience because there's something you want to tell them. That's the point of language, right? But they listen if you're telling them something that they care about. So that relevance overlap in the Venn diagram there is where you're able to say what you want to say and people hear you. Now, the problem is that you can't always be in that sweet spot. So the better thing to do is to find a way to say what you want to say in a way that seems relevant, in a way that they'll care about. Now, I know that this isn't news to instructional designers or user experience people, but when you start thinking about producing video content for a really diverse audience, it starts to get a little more complicated. In reality, your Venn diagram probably looks a little more like this. You have a lot of people to speak to across your organization, across your customer base. You have managers, interns, remote salespeople, executives, new customers, really loyal customers. You have all of these audiences to speak to, and what's relevant to one person is maybe totally irrelevant to another. So if this is your Venn diagram, what then, right? The traditional answer was to spray and pray, just dump your information out there and accept that people are going to ignore the parts of it that don't work for them. But what we know now is that what happens is you lose your audience. People don't sit through irrelevance the way they used to. So what then?
You know, and we also find that across organizations, audiences are segmented into different departmental domains. So,
Hmm.
you know, it's not always possible to spray and pray. You know, you have human resources, corporate communications, marketing, investor relations, and so on. And, you know, they're all working on communications and sometimes duplicating efforts to reach the same or similar groups of people with similar but different goals. So, you know, producing multiple videos can get expensive, or more likely, because of that price point, can lead to not using the medium at all, which is really a
Yeah.
missed opportunity for organizations.
And you can start getting into departmental schisms too. You can see one kind of tone and voice and message in one place and a totally different one somewhere else, which is no good. Um, and you know, thanks to technology, this is kind of the solution to that ugly Venn diagram that a lot of people are going after, which is breaking up your content, you know, and targeting users with the info that you believe is relevant to them. And this is kind of the key behind microlearning. That's why that's so popular. The idea is you just create many small pieces and you let users ignore the parts of your content that are irrelevant to them and only have them engage with the relevant info. And it's more likely then that they'll get the message. There are a number of ways that this relates to video, but we're going to focus on navigable interactive video. And I'm going to talk a little bit, we're going to talk about how to apply this thinking to your video creation efforts. So the title of this webinar is Control-Alt-Delete. You all probably know that's the PC shortcut to reboot, or at least it used to be. But it's also a good mnemonic device for 3 important points about creating user-centric interactive video. What we're talking about is a shift in thinking. It's a strategy reboot that we believe will really help you be more effective with what you're already doing. Everything from the small shoestring jobs to the big full production ones. We're going to start with control because this is the biggest of the 3 and it's the most important to your audience. We expect to be in control now. Yeah, I work in interactive video, but it's not actually about interactivity. Interactivity is just a feature. We don't actually want interactivity as an audience. What we want is control. And sometimes interactivity can enable that control. But even within interactive video, some software offers interactivity that doesn't actually bring the user more control. And in my opinion, that's not going to move the needle much. We expect to be in control because we spend all of our free time immersed in worlds where we have ultimate control. From gaming on consoles and computer platforms to streaming media to casual games on our mobile devices. This kind of control has become the norm over the last couple decades. And you know, even in real life, this is a picture I found online that I thought was funny, but it illustrates the concept that in real life you have the option to check out. So if you don't give users control within your communications content, if you don't give them the ability to find something that's relevant to them, that's the option they're going to exercise. Unless you do this. Now you should check with your HR department, but most companies don't allow this for employee training or onboarding or corp comm or maybe even marketing, although you know your marketing department might be more open to it. So we were talking about this. This is break it up and let users select relevant content. Now with video, when you cut your content up into many small videos, it's just many small videos. The ones that aren't relevant to that audience aren't relevant. And you know that just means that they're not going to engage with them. And maybe you don't even see them, but if you do, you'll likely dismiss them because they don't seem like they're relevant to you. Now when you put control inside the video experience, you're wrapping it together so that you've got many small pieces of content but wrapped in a larger experience. And there are 2 important things that come from this. The first is that you're creating a single experience, and that generates some stickiness. Every time a video ends, it's a chance for your user to bounce and go do something else, right? So by wrapping it all in one experience, it's like the video segments end, but the video experience itself doesn't. And here's an example of what that means. One of our customers is a global consultancy with over 200,000 employees, and they were producing videos that were under 60 seconds, and they were publishing them all in their video hub. These were a lot of corp comm kind of pieces, and the average view time was 8 seconds. That's not great. 90% of users had left the video before the 30-second mark, and their most successful videos only had a couple thousand views. So they made a navigable interactive video, and they saw that not only did the majority of the company engage with it, but the average time in the experience was about 9 minutes. The other result is that users explore more of the content that they deem less relevant because it's framed by the relevant content. And in a way, then it sort of becomes more relevant. It's like the relevant content is vouching for its buddy over here, right? Which is pretty cool. So
I think that's really cool, Caleb. That the fact that so much money, effort, and time is spent within organizations in making this video content, and over the last few years, we've had lots of customers come to us and request. They understand that video is a really compelling medium, and they want to have lots of content available on their website or their intranet to keep their audiences engaged. But when you're spending so much money, effort, and time creating content that is only engaged in for a fraction of the time, you're really missing an opportunity. So those statistics were really compelling to me, to see people are bailing out of a linear video at the 8-second mark and yet spending 9 minutes within an interactive experience. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's incredible. So just a reminder to everyone, we've had a couple questions, it looks like, come in on the questions tab. We also have the chat window, so I just chatted I guess that only went to the organizers. Okay, I guess I can't chat to all the audience, but feel free to post some stuff into the chat or ask some questions. Lauren, does everybody have the ability to post into chat? Is that something that all attendees can do? I'm not sure.
Yeah, it looks like the chat and the Q&A section are both open to the attendees.
Great. Okay, so as we're going, feel free to ask questions, and we'll try to answer them in line where we can. But let's keep going here. So we can't show that one example I was just talking about because it's an internal comms piece, and we are not allowed to show it. But I do want to show an example that really speaks to what control is about. This is a product onboarding video for our software platform, and this is what we use for customers as well as new employees. When people are first learning about our product, we have a series of these experiences that are kind of topical and talk to what the product's about. And I want to show this here.
Welcome to Hotspot Editing. Creating hotspots on your Rapt Media video is the primary way to add interactivity to your project. Hotspots are contained in the interactive layer of our player and are primarily used to trigger new clips, URL linkouts, and API events. So let's begin. If you have specific questions regarding hotspots, select from any of the menu options you see here, or select Get Started for a comprehensive run. Creating hotspots. There are two ways to create hotspots in the Rapt Media Composer. 1. Link the video to other nodes on the node map. This dynamically generates hotspots for each connected node. Changing button behavior. So what happens when the hotspot is clicked? The options under the behavior section of the properties pane answer that question. There are 4 options in the action.
All right, so I wanted to show that one to illustrate the concept of control. What you saw there is the ability to kind of go in and sort of navigate by topic to be able to really kind of drive the experience yourself. And the reason that that's relevant for a product onboarding is that we're not presuming that you haven't touched it at all. We're not presuming that you're not in the software yet or just gotten into the software. It's possible that you're referring back to this later. And so that's a kind of a nice way to allow users to navigate through. And you saw that when you click into one of those topics, you can immediately go back. And we can chat out, Lauren, if you can chat out the link to our documentation site. We have a handful of these kinds of videos on there so that you can see what I'm talking about. That was just a screen grab, but you'll get to actually kind of click through the video. So we can send that out in the follow-up email or send it out in chat. Let's talk about alt. And alt is about embracing alternate methods. And as a point of illustration, I'm going to start with something really exciting. So hold on to your seats. Like, you might want to sit down if you're standing up and get ready for benefits administration. And yes, that's Tom Cruise. So benefits administration is an interesting example because it's something that that every company, not every company, many companies deal with. And traditionally, it might look like this. You have this massive document that you send out to your employees, and then you sit back and you wait for all the calls to roll in as they ask you questions instead of actually slogging through that massive document, right? So this is a place where you're probably looking for some alternative methods, right? But just taking that massive tome and putting it into a video is probably not going to work out. You're going to end up with a really, really long video that no one watches and calls you instead of a really long PDF that no one reads. So the point here is that you need to really embrace this new medium and you need to leverage it for a better experience. Barbara, I know you had some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I don't know if many of our audience would be old enough to remember the old Marshall McLuhan book, The Medium is the Message, which was talking about television as a medium. But, embracing the new and different media at your disposal really says a lot about where you're coming from. So if you think about interactive video as an innovation for your organization, you think about what that says. It says, that the very choice is telling your audience that you care about putting them at the center of the communication. You care about what's most interesting to the individual who's watching this or experiencing this program. You care about their feedback because this is a dialogue. In fact, you'll be collecting analytics about their choices and folding that into maybe future communications or part of the program. So, think about the medium is the message, and there is a very strong communication within the very choice of using interactivity with your video communications.
Yeah, it's a great point. I want to show Aon Hewitt. This is partway into a video experience here, but there's a group inside Aon Hewitt doing some really amazing work in exactly benefits administration. E-Learning Guild did a case study on them, which I think is in one of those handouts. But the concept is that they're using interactive video to help people self-serve on benefits administration. And their goal is to reduce call center volume and get people to be able to actually find the information that they want when they need it. So I'm going to show this quick example here, and this is partway through, and it's just kind of looking at a couple topics.
My colleagues and I have a lot of useful information and helpful tips. Hey guys.
Hey, Sean.
Hey, Sean. Okay, let's get started. Just click on a topic. To get back to this home page and pick a new topic, click on the home button.
You're getting married? That's great. Congratulations. Your life is about to change, and your insurance benefits may need to change too. So,
Welcome back. Ready to choose a new topic? Be my guest.
So you're on the move. A change in your permanent address counts as a qualified change in status. Here are the allowable changes. You can enroll yourself, your spouse or domestic partner, and any eligible...
Welcome back. Ready to choose a new topic?
Okay, so that's the... this actually illustrates another point, which is that no matter where you pause a video, someone's going to be making a stupid face. This is really cool. They are doing exactly what we're talking about here in terms of sort of embracing that medium, and they're seeing really good results out of it. They did one of these for the state of North Carolina for healthcare selection and enrollment, and they saw it was something like a 7-minute average view time across the roughly 200,000 viewers who engaged with it, which is it's good, and the the business results out of it were exactly what they were looking for in terms of self-service on enrollment. So really good data there. And why am I not advancing? There we go.
Okay, so one of the things we talked about earlier was how, you're across an organization, there's different departments that are looking to create video. So, at this point in the webinar, anybody out there in the audience might be thinking, yeah, this all sounds great, but how do we get started? And really, more importantly, what's this all going to cost me? So, you know, we get that question all the time. It's obviously an important part of figuring out if you can go forward with this. And, you know, figuring out what your particular project would cost is a lot like the question you would ask a builder, you know, how much does it cost to build a house? Well, we need specifications. We need to understand. A lot of questions would be asked before we could answer that. You know, but you should never let cost be a barrier. And oftentimes when we have clients that come to us and say, you know, we want to create a video and we have this much money and this is what we think it should be, if that's not quite enough, we say to them, you know, listen, think about who else within your organization might be able to use this communication tool. So, you know, who else could share in the cost of this? So, for example, if our, you know, the initial inquiry comes to us for a brand video for investor relations, perhaps that same video could be useful for sales and marketing, or perhaps with recruiting and talent acquisition, or perhaps, you know, within HR for onboarding, etc. So when you think about the different ways or the different audiences that any particular video might segment down into, you know, think in terms of sharing the costs, because it can, you know, you can get some efficiency of scale and you can also share budget dollars to be able to launch into this kind of a program.
Yeah, I think that's a really great point. And that sort of efficiency is enabled by the fact that you can address multiple audiences without losing that relevance. So, yeah. So next is delete. So to be ninja, you must be silent, invisible, everywhere and nowhere. I'm obviously not actually talking about being a ninja. What delete yourself is about, it's about the idea that your communications content should not be about you. It's about your audience. And this is not, I'm definitely not the first person to say that. And I know that for a lot of people like instructional designers, information architecture people, UX people, this isn't news. But it's funny that a lot of people don't start here with video. A lot of times the video process starts with people thinking about the thing they want to say and then how they're going to say it. And that's not necessarily the best move. It's definitely not the best move when it comes to interactive video, and probably not for video in general. Tribe's going to talk a little bit about what that kind of user-centric design means in terms of video.
Right. You know, the best thing you can do to try to jumpstart the project is sit down and try to come up with the bare bones or the outline of a creative brief. And we're happy to help you with that process. There are two questions we ask everyone at the start of a project, and that is, number one, let's talk about who the audience is. And you know, I don't want to just hear the audience is employees or prospects or customers, but we have to dig deeply and try to understand the demographics. We understand how that, you know, that particular group of people segments down, and you know, also we want to talk about what are the barriers to accepting this message. You know, do they have preconceptions? You know, that sort of thing. So we try to roll up our sleeves and work with you to get a really clear, detailed understanding of who your audience is. That's the first building block to a good, solid creative brief. And then the second one is, what do you want those people to think, do, feel, say, buy, or even buy into as a result of this experience of watching this video or participating in this interactive video? And what are the barriers to the success there? And then, you know, once we have the answers to those questions, then we can explore, you know, some other, you know, areas such as, you know, tone. Is this going to be lighthearted? Is this going to be serious? Is this going to be detailed, etc.? So this creative brief that you work on at the outset before we do anything else that has to do with producing video becomes a guide map for you throughout the entire process of production. It helps you to get internal buy-in from your stakeholders, such as, you know, your department head, your boss, your colleagues, etc. And it ensures that you're not headed down a path that you're going to get, start spending a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort and find out that you're on the wrong path. So it's also a guide map that you can refer back to later in the process when you're looking at the approval stage, and you can ask yourself, is this video accomplishing everything we had hoped for in the outset?
It's interesting too. With interactive video, you sort of have this other layer on top, which is the UI and UX layer, and there's sort of almost a second set of vetting and understanding that you need to do. I've done a bunch of user testing in my career, and it's funny how just getting something in front of 4 or 5 people will give you incredible insights. I had an app that I was working on some years ago, and one of the audiences was business personas, and some of them were HR people, and one of the groups was that. And so as we were testing out this app, you could pause the content that you were in and kind of go to a separate piece and then go back to the place where you left off. And the button that we had for that was resume. And it was hysterical that anyone who was related to anything that had to do with hiring or jobs or recruitment, they're looking at this and they go, oh, okay, and there's a resume button here. I guess I can like upload a resume, and just changing it to continue really made a huge difference. So there's sort of the shaping of the creative, but then also the user interface side when it comes to things like button text or user flow, and making sure that what you're doing makes sense with the mental models that your audience is working with. Cool. All right. I'm not advancing again here. There we go. So we went from here, where you're creating these disparate pieces of content for the user to watch, to this, where you're putting control inside the video and you're creating an experience. And by deleting yourself, what happens is that your audience becomes the center of it all. Now, that's great. And the big thing there is that when you let go of control and you put the user in the middle of that experience and you let them consume at will, they're not receiving a message anymore. You'll see you're not even in this diagram. They're the main character in an experience that's all about them. And that's something that really works, that really drives great results. We had a financial institution create an interactive video that was trying to get people to increase their 401k contribution. And if you think about kind of daily life things that you're not going to be especially motivated to do as a young person, and you're starting out in your career, increasing your 401k contribution is probably pretty high on the list. The software to do it is a pain. You have to think about life stuff that you don't really want to worry about. And what they did is they created this interactive experience that kind of drove people to understand the importance of investing now and how compound interest works and all that stuff. But the end was a call to action that drove people to log in to increase their contributions. And what they saw was this was a company of around 10,000 people. They had around 8,000 employees do this thing, and about 50% of them actually logged in and increased their contributions, which is incredible. Like, that kind of conversion rate is insane. But it's entirely because they made the entire experience about the user, from the content to the interface to all of it, right? And at the end, the user felt so good about that, and they felt like the logical end of this journey was increasing their contribution, and so they did it. Really great results. So this is what it looks like when you put your user in control. But there's another aspect here. And when you think about relevance, this starts to make a lot of sense. We share things with our colleagues and friends and family. We share content, we share information, because we understand those people and we understand what's relevant to them. And so if I am consuming content, or I'm having an experience and I think, oh man, you know who would really love this? Barbara would really love to have this. I'll send her a link to it. It's because I feel like this is going to be relevant to her. And in doing that, I'm sort of I'm getting some social equity, and I'm also kind of risking some social equity, right? If I'm way off base and Barbara's like, what is this? Obviously that's a miss, but so it's kind of an interesting side effect of putting the user in control and giving them relevant content. Barbara, do you
Right,
have
and
more you
this,
want to say about that?
yeah, this also goes back to what we were saying about, what do you want your audience to think, do, feel, say, buy? One of the things that I think anybody would want their audience to do or think or feel is, wow, this was really cool. I want to share it. I'm going to send this to Caleb and see what he thinks. And we call that, when a video or a project goes viral within an organization, it's great because it comes back to you and your internal stakeholders when, back to that thing I was saying about the medium being the message, people will be saying, wow, who did that? Who generated that content? Who's behind this program? Can I have one? We find that all the time. When a video
Yeah.
is well made and it's a big hit with the audience it was intended for, quite often whoever within the organization produced it is immediately then getting requests. Can I do something like that? Can I have that to use in my department in a different way? So, that there's a lot to be said for this idea of sharing and going viral.
Definitely. And I know, Tribe, you wanted to talk a little bit about some examples that speak to deleting yourself here and kind of what can come out of that.
Yeah, these are two screen grabs that are on the screen right now from two different projects that we did. The one on the left is something that we did for one of the big four accounting firms that wanted to do a training for new employees every year in the spring when there's a new graduating class. This particular firm hires a lot of younger people to join the firm, and they immediately send them out on a road trip, which is meant to inspire networking and give them some good solid onboarding. But what they were finding was that these folks were taking the networking a little too far, and they wanted to create a training program that was about how to behave as a representative of the firm when you are traveling, perhaps in a fun destination, and you're encouraged to network with your colleagues, but that doesn't mean we want you to get so inebriated that the next morning you're not able to really participate in the learning that's going on within the sessions. So there were, for them it was really important that they created a scenario that illustrated some of the bad things that were getting reported to their ethics office. They didn't want their employees to be playing out the roles of these scenarios. So for us, we recommended that you want these scenarios to be believable. You want these young people who are used to watching television and Netflix and all the stuff that we watch to get sucked into the drama of the scenario and not be laughing at the communication itself. So we recommended using actors, not real employees. And it was really important to us that we write a believable script and that we had actors that could carry that content and seem like they were real employees of the company. Now, on the right-hand side is a screen grab from a different kind of a training. It was also in the ethics and compliance department, and it was done for a different firm that we work with that is in the healthcare industry. But their ethics training there was around, issues like, what do you do when a vendor sends you an expensive gift? For them, they decided that they wanted this to incorporate real employees in real locations that everyone would identify with, but they didn't want to set any real employee up as like the doofus that didn't know better. So what we did was we made the camera become one of the characters, and that camera was the guy who didn't know any better. So you never really saw who that was. And we made a sort of a entertaining, lighthearted, funny little script that set up the scenarios. But at the same time, the company had a concern that, this wasn't fun and games. This is about some serious ethical issues. So that what we decided to do was we proposed, and they accepted, to have their CEO open up the entire training with a direct little speech to camera where he said, things like, this is really important to the company. Our reputation stands on some of these decisions that you make, and we have a department that's here to help guide you. So, let's laugh along and have fun while we learn. But having set up the scenarios like that, then we would play out the little the setup, and there would be a branch point like this where it says, what would you do? And then after choosing each, after making your choice, then another little video would play out that shows, how that choice would, what the ramifications of each choice were. And the CEO would come back at the end and say something like, please tell me that didn't just happen. Or, good for you, I knew I could count on you, depending on what the choice was. So this is an illustration of what I was talking about before, where we really want to understand the audience, we want to understand the key content points, and we want to understand the tone in which you're speaking to that audience so that we can design an experience that fits. There's no one-size-fits-all here. These are really custom-made, given whatever, given what we talk about at the front end.
Totally, yeah. The CEO piece is interesting too, because that sort of humanizes the company leadership. And I know that's something else that our study uncovered, was that people felt like they were just a number, that the senior leadership at their company didn't know them or didn't understand them or didn't care about them, and they felt really detached from that leadership. And kind of humanizing the CEO like that's a really good way to kind of break down that barrier a little bit. I think that's great. I'm going to show kind of a different sort of example here. This is one that Newton Running made. And the concept here, this is about product education, and it really illustrates the concept of outside-in communication versus inside-out. If you think about how a lot of companies talk about their products, especially when they're trying to educate consumers about which product to purchase, they start by talking about the different product lines and then describing what each line is about and what its differentiators are and why it does what it does and blah, 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 right? And that makes sense when you're the company, because that's what you're thinking about. But as an end user, think about what I'm actually looking for. I just want to find the right thing for me. And the way that inside-out communication works is that I need to go consume all the information, aggregate it in my head, and then make decisions based on this new information. It's a whole lot of time and cognitive overhead. And so what Newton did, their shoes are pretty technical and interesting, and they're hard to buy if you've never bought them before, because they're not like normal running shoes, and they're geared for serious runners. And so they saw that a big part of what was holding up their sales was just customer education, people not knowing what shoe to purchase. And so they created this piece that guides the user through the process the same way a salesperson might, by asking them questions about them. So I'm going to play this here.
Welcome to Newton Running. Which model is right for you? Let's start by asking a few questions. First, are you male or female? Click below. Great choice. Now let's take a look at your foot type. You're going to need to get your foot wet with either a bucket of water or a wet paper towel, and walk on a smooth surface that will show your footprints. Now let's take a look at those footprints. If your arches are filled in, you pronate, and you'll want a stability version of our shoes. If you have high arches, you have a neutral gait, and you'll want a neutral version of our shoes. Which surface will you primarily use these shoes on road or on trail? Ba-bang! Your results are in.
Okay, so that's the basic concept. I hope everyone could hear that okay. The sound on that one was a little bit quiet. But that was the basic idea. And they saw that this really helped people get to the right shoe. They saw really great completion rates on this one, actually. Normally you'll see in video and in video experiences, you'll see an abandonment partway through. this was, they had something like a 90-ish% completion rate of people who started the video. It was really good, 90, 93%, it was something like that. So that's pretty cool. It means people are getting through and they're getting the information and they're understanding why each product is relevant to them. So it's a good example of kind of designing from the outside in and deleting yourself. So I want to wrap quickly here, and if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, go ahead and paste those into the question window there, and we'll get to those in just a second. So key takeaways here: give your audience control. Make your content more granular and allow them to navigate as much as possible, and make as much content optional as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Don't make people sit through the meta discourse of here's what we're going to talk about and here's how we're going to do it. Let them get right in. I actually saw a great, Kurt Vonnegut's one of my favorite authors, and I saw him speak some years back, and he said, you know what, I'm going to give all of you some advice about the story that you're working on right now. Delete the first 3 chapters. You don't need them. Just throw people into the middle of it. So that's kind of it's true, and we've seen that work. We had a company do their sort of annual report. Their CEO was speaking, and he wanted to do this big, it was like a 3-minute intro to this annual report, and they saw a really high drop-off in the middle of that intro. And the second that they added a skip button, which the CEO felt sad about because no one wanted to hear him talk, they saw a really good completion rate, and the average time in project went up to it was over 4 minutes, and I think they only had about 4.5 minutes worth of content excluding that intro. So just that control and that optional nature of that content made it really more successful. Embrace alternate methods. So don't just reimagine your video, reimagine your other communications in interactive video. Leverage the power of the medium, and as Tribe said, the medium is the message. Just using something that enables people and gives them that control and gets them to relevant content faster generates a huge amount of gratitude. People really love that kind of experience, and you're saying something about how much you care about them by using that medium. And delete yourself. Make it about your audience. If you don't know, just ask them, and if you think you know, you may not, in the case of the resume button. So that's a good piece there. I'm going to be doing another webinar probably in January. I'm going to be talking about some other methods for kind of shoestring budget kind of stuff, and there are some instances where that's appropriate. There are many instances where what you want is really great production value. As Tribe was talking about, getting people to engage with content, it has to be good. And you can't have people laughing at content that's supposed to be serious. Think driver's ed, right? Back when we did that, those were not serious. So I think
just
that's
one more thing along those lines before we go to the questions is if you have by any chance already produced a list of content, think about it in a way that might lend itself to interactivity, maybe with some graphical choice points added or whatever. But we had one client that I mentioned earlier who wanted to create a variety of different employee profiles for a recruiting website, and they knew that they wanted to have a variety that was representative of the different types of employees that they have in different silos. And so there is this content already created that could be used to and they're considering that right now, like, do we use some kind of setup and then let our prospects choose which path they want to take, and then have a link to where they can apply right at the end. So think about what you have that exists, or even if some of it exists, that you might be able to repurpose in this interactive format.
That's great. Yeah. All right, so one of the questions is, what are some of the use cases in HR and Corp Comms where you've seen success with interactive video? We can answer that. Tribe, you probably have some answers to that too. Ethics and compliance, obviously, that's one that you've seen great success in. We've also seen, as we said, benefits administration, benefits selection, benefits enrollment, those kinds of things. In general, Sorry?
Onboarding new, I was going to say onboarding new employees. If you have a
Yeah.
number of things you want them to learn about, they can do some of it and come back later and do more in a different time. And then, because of the beauty of the Rapt platform, you would be able to get the information back about who has completed how much of the program, what they chose to do first might be of interest to you, that sort of thing.
Yeah. That's great. I think in general, when you have a lot of kind of dense, fairly dry information that you want to distribute across audiences where a lot of it is not going to be relevant to a lot of the audience. If people have to kind of seek the relevant info, this is a great way to do it. And one of the things that's really great is that there's a kind of a concept in brand marketing that every touch point with a customer is brand marketing. Every support chat that you have, every single touch point with your customer is an opportunity for brand marketing because you're really talking about who you are as a company. And when you think about employees as another sort of audience for brand marketing, which they are, this is exactly the same thing. Every touch point is a chance to kind of reinforce who your company is, who you are as a brand, and that's very cool. Great. We have another question on what are the metrics for success? How do you measure? So how do you measure these interactive videos is a great question. And we recommend that when people are starting with a project, that the first thing they do is they think about the KPIs. What are the business metrics? What are the actual outcomes that you want to have? What do you want to affect? What behavior do you want to change? What things do you want people to do or not do, or do more of or less of? And you start there, and you kind of build against those KPIs. You build to incentivize and to drive the behavior that affect those numbers. At that point, then measuring success becomes really easy. It's just, did it work or didn't it? Did those numbers move? And the one thing that we would recommend, and I know that Tribe, you talked also about, did your boss love it? Did other stakeholders love it? Are you getting accolades from other departments or within your department? I think it's a good kind of side benefit as well. So that's pretty awesome. I lost the thread there. There was another point I was going to bring up on that, on moving the needle. I've lost it. It's gone. All right. That looks like all we had for structured questions. Yeah. So that's great. It looks like we're a few minutes early. Everyone can go grab a coffee or a sandwich or something. You've gained a few minutes back of your day. If you think of any questions after the fact, please hit us up. You can email us or kind of reach out to us through whatever means, and we're happy to talk. If you have a project that you're thinking about doing, we're very happy to brainstorm with you and try to figure out what the best way would be to go about it. So both Tribe and Rapt are always available for that kind of thing. So please hit us up. All right,
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for joining. I hope you enjoyed it.